Hello everyone, welcome to the channel here of MeteoMark Weather. It's great to have you here. We got so much to talk about here with the tropics. What is going on with our Gulf of Mexico system here? Is it going to develop into a tropical storm? When will this occur? And how much rainfall could we be looking at? And do we have a chance of a hurricane coming out of this? We'll explore all the details along with Major Hurricane Kirk out here, along with several other Cape Verde systems that stand a chance to watch here, some of them coming close to the northeastern Caribbean islands. We'll take a look at all your forecast stateside through North America and the Western Pacific. Let's get into it. So take a look at our infrared satellite view. You can see there's our system down there making landfall along the South Mexican coastline. That moisture is going to be heading north. We have moisture over here, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. There's that spin in the atmosphere and lots of moisture hung up here across the Gulf and over towards Florida. This is all going to slowly come together over the next several days. And we're going to get into why I'm so concerned about Florida here. These latest couple of model runs are really getting scary rainfall-wise across Central and South Florida. So starting off with the European model here, and we'll progress towards the GFS momentarily. This system has been a very long, drawn-out system, and as we head into Friday, that energy comes across the Yucatan into the Gulf of Mexico, lots of moisture feeding north to the north-central Gulf Coast. And you're going to have to watch this high-pressure system dominating the eastern part of the U.S. This is going to be the key player. Now, the models have been having trouble with this trough. There's wind shear to the north that's very strong. So, unfortunately, what the models have been showing the last 24 to 36 hours is basically disappearing this low pressure system because of all the wind shear and dry air to the north. Now, today, things have become a bit more clearer as we head into October 5th into the 6th. So as we get into the weekend, that energy is continuing to come across the Yucatan from the Pacific, Central America, and the Western Caribbean here. And it's starting to come together. This trough to the north is slowly weakening. We still have plenty of wind shear to the north. So if this thing were to become too close to the north-central Gulf Coast, it would literally get sheared apart here. So as we continue in time here, here's October 6th. You start to see this thing try to close off an area of low pressure. I don't think anything's going to come out of this over the weekend or early next week. I think it would be closer to the middle part of next week that we'd start to see something try to develop here. Now, Central America, as you notice, eastern Mexican coastline here, the Yucatan, Belize, Honduras, still getting torrential rain out of this. And here's the problem for Central and South Florida, the peninsula. We're going to continue to see rain well out ahead of it. And that kind of reminds you of the rain that fell well out ahead of Helene here just a week ago. And that's not good news, because as we head in time here, we're going to be looking at potentially two areas of low pressure trying to form here. Now you see this high to the north. It's just continuing to build southward here. So here's our trough. This looks a bit more synoptic. This low back here looks a little bit more tropical in nature here. So as we continue through the 8th into the 9th, you can see our timeline has really slowed down and backed off from what it was a couple days ago. So here we go. The European model really ramping this storm up. It looks more like a tropical storm by this point. October 9th at 2 p.m. approaching the West Florida coastline here. Look at the rainfall continuing. You're even going to see rainfall bands into Jamaica and the Cayman Islands here. Honduras, Nicaragua, Belize, the Yucatan, Cancun. Just look at all that rain. So yeah, if you have vacation down there, plan on a lot of rain, especially on the southern side of this very broad area of low pressure. As it tries to develop into a tropical storm, you can see what's going on here. It's slowing down. This is October 10th, coming in just south of Tampa. But look at this. This is the 11th. It literally has barely moved, and it's getting hung up over South Florida. Tremendous moisture over here. But look where our trough is with that big low. It's zoomed off to the east, and that leaves this potential storm stuck. We have high pressure blocking to the north. It's building southward, even over here. So this thing cannot exit towards the east or the northeast. It can only bend or retrograde, as you can see in the next couple frames here, back westward. Here's October 12th. It's heading back into the Gulf of Mexico here. We actually have another system I'm going to be talking about northeast of the Caribbean islands here by this time period as well. So look at this. Could we actually have a storm that retrogrades back into the Gulf after it makes landfall in Florida and then comes backward? It's quite possible. We've been getting these big blocking highs, and look at how strong this is. This will not allow this system to exit. And before we continue with more weather coverage, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video, smash that like button. It really does help, everyone. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe and bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue. So let's track it here on the GFS model. You can see as we go out here in time, it's a very similar situation. The GFS has slowly been playing catch up here with the European models. We head into next week. So let's just back this up along here through Friday into Saturday into Sunday. We're just going to be dealing with a lot of rain well out ahead of this system. Remind you a little bit of Hurricane Helene here with that moisture well out ahead of where it was going to make landfall in the southeast, which is really bad because that really saturates the soil here. And as we head through October 8th, you can see we do start to dry things out a little bit down here through the Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, Belize, Honduras. Still some showers at times on the southern end of the system. Then as we get into October 9th and the 10th, the GFS really starts to spin this thing up into something here. So this is different from yesterday where the models tone things down a bit. Now we potentially have something on the table again. It looks like tropical storm at this point. Here is that additional low pressure we're seeing that we saw on the European model as well. GFS looks actually a little bit slower here than the European model and really slows it down, bringing it inland here just south of Tampa, just like the European model does, only a day or two longer here. But the one thing here that the GFS keeps going is a little bit more progressive because it doesn't have the high pressure as far to the south here. It has it stuck up here into the eastern Great Lakes. So that should help, at least here on this run of the GFS, this system make a potentially clean exit off the east coast of Florida. And we'll keep an eye on that because, you know, things can change with this, but even with the system more progressive across Florida, the rainfall amounts coming out on the GFS are simply staggering. So things are tropical tidbits here for our mid-layer and upper-level dry air analysis and moisture analysis. You can see we got plenty of moisture up here across the Gulf of Mexico. And as we continue through the weekend into next week, you see we have a couple areas of concern. We have another hurricane out here. We have that Cape Verde wave, and then look at the Gulf here, that long drawn-out area of low pressure on the south end of a trough that's going to be digging and moving northeastward here. So as you can see, there's a lot of dry air coming right on the back side of it and then to the north here. That's associated with that big high pressure that's nosing southwestward here. And then as we get into Thursday, October 10th, you start to see the GFS is now bringing this back up to like a 989 millibar low here, October 11th. So this is going to be really crucial. Let's just back this up just a little bit. There's that extra area of low pressure developing out ahead of it, more probably related to synoptically. But there it is across Florida. And then look what starts to happen. That retrograding that we saw on the European model is obviously not happening here on the GFS, as that high pressure remains in control. However, you can see this is able to zoom off a little bit further to the south and east and catch up a little bit with this trough. But that is crazy because even without retrograde here on the GFS is still putting 15 to 25 inches of rain across central and south Florida. As we get into the European model here, you can see what's happening. There it is across the Gulf of Mexico. We have our hurricane out here. There's Kirk. Yeah, Kirk's just going to be blasting northeastward there. And then as we go out here in time, as we head through October 8th and into the 9th, you see a very similar scenario here, a 994 millibar strong low pressure system here, and then a 987 developing. So strengthening towards the coast. And then the European doing its retrograding thing back westward here. As that trough, you can see where it is. It's kind of hung up over here well away from our area of low pressure, and the European trying to bend this westward, and you can see what happens here. We'll have to see which one is right, because look at the European shows this high pressure starting to push this system back across the Gulf, but look what it's going to be heading into here. A lot of dry air at mid to high levels. I want to bring your attention here on the European model. Another area of low pressure south of Jamaica. We could be looking at another tropical wave trying to come up here into the Northwest Caribbean come the middle of October. So taking a look at wind shear here, this is what we got going on for us. The Northern Gulf, there's that big area of wind shear. This is going to be on the base of a trough that it's going to be interacting with, so that's why the models have been having trouble with this. But there it is. It's just on the south side of all that shear here to the north. So you get the idea. The system's going to be, could the system end up being like a hybrid type system? It's possible. But I think eventually, you know, the models are starting to win out here with it slowly becoming more tropical, especially as it heads in the direction of Florida later next week. But I just want to bring your attention to something here. Look at the lack of wind shear out here into the MDR and the Caribbean. And if we just zoom in a bit here on the European model into the Gulf and the Caribbean, you can see this thing is literally going to be playing a balancing act here with this trough axis to the north, all that wind shear and dry air to the north, and then it's going to be just on the southern side. So if this thing can stay on the southern side, it can actually obtain some tropical characteristics as we head on into the middle to latter part of next week. And I really want to zoom into Florida here. Here's the GFS output. This is terrible. So let's hope this does not come true, because look at Sarasota, Port St. Lucie, Cape Coral, West Palm Beach, Miami, Palm Bay, even Tampa, Orlando. We're still talking about even 7, 8, 9 inches further north. 20 to 25 inches in some of these areas. And here's our European run. Let's see, we can't go as far out on it. So this stops us at October 13th, but you get the idea here. This is still really bad. And the fact that the bullseye is over here, and you know, we cut off on the October 13th, you know that's going to propagate here towards the east, these 15 plus inch totals. So for the rest of the tropics here, yeah, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Central America, the Gulf, it's going to remain pretty active here. Lots of rainfall just bubbling up from the southwest here. Now, let's take a look at our Cape Verde season here. Kirk is going to blast up into it's category 4 now. It's going to continue towards 145 to 150. It is a strong hurricane. Is it going to make any landfall impacts here? Well, the good news is it's going to head on the eastern part of a low pressure system and a high over here towards the Azores. And it's going to steer just to the north of the Azores here. So that's some good news. Hopefully we can keep it away from the Azores safely here. Now, unfortunately, we do have our next tropical storm, Leslie. This storm will be becoming a hurricane, probably a category 3, maybe even a 4. Pretty similar location to where Kirk is right now. But the wild card here is the European model is starting to take Leslie, bending it more westward here. And I want to bring your attention here towards the 10th, 11th, and 12th into the Caribbean. Look at some of these tropical waves down towards Trinidad, Tobago. Rainfall will be increasing here across the Caribbean. Now, this storm, what happens to it? Thankfully, the European model tries to bend it a little bit more north here. I do caution you, though, this trough to the north is heading pretty fast here. This was the same trough that was supposed to pick up our Gulf of Mexico system, and it may not end up doing this for this system either. So we'll have to keep a close watch on that. And then Cape Verde season, look at this. We're still spinning off some strong waves here. So as we take a look at the rest of the tropics here on the GFS, there is Major Hurricane Kirk making that round. Does it stay away from the Azores? It looks like it does. That is some good news. We'll keep an eye on it here for you through the Azores. As we head through the rest of the Caribbean here, with the exception for a few showers on the southern end of our system here through Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Belize, Yucatan Peninsula, just going to continue to get gully washed here, so to speak. But look at this. Some tropical wave action out here in the intertropical convergence zone, Trinidad, Tobago towards October 11th. Looks like the GFS goes a little more quieter, at least, than the European does, but we're going to keep an eye on some of these systems here. You can see a few areas of concern, and then a big wave getting ready to come off the African coast out by the Cape Verdes. So here's our trouble spot for rainfall. It's just going to continue across Central America here. You can see, especially next week, we're going to really fill in these rainfall totals as they come on the southern end of the system. Now, Jamaica, you're not going to see staggering rainfall totals, as is Cayman Islands. You're going to see an average, I think, of about 60, 70, 80 millimeters here. So you'll get up towards about 1.5 inches, 2.5 inches. It'll keep things cooled down, which is good. But Central America, I think this is where you stand the chance of seeing 100, maybe 125, 150 millimeters. On average here, and I think this will fill in as we go in time as the models get a better handle on this system. Heading to the Eastern Caribbean and the Bahamas, things look dry through the weekend here, and then we get into tropical wave action as we head into the middle to latter part of next week. You can see Trinidad Tobago getting up towards 80 to 90 millimeters there, about 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain. Here in the Bahamas, almost no rain near the Turks and Caicos, but look at with our tropical potential system in the Gulf crossing over, we could see as much as 100 to 150, maybe 200 millimeters of rainfall. That's going to get us up towards that 4 to as much as 8, maybe 10 inches of rain. So total precipitation amounts here, I'm going to show you both the European and the GFS. So as we head throughout the weekend into next week, yeah, you can see where most of the rainfall is going to be. Unfortunately, there's the Gulf Coast, many coastal areas, but Florida. Florida is unfortunately the big target here. This time it's much of the peninsula, Central and South Florida. This is where we're going to see probably 6 to as much as 15 inches of rain in some of these areas. This takes us through Sunday, October 13th. If we look at the GFS here, compare it to the European model, this takes us through next Tuesday. Look at that. Already the GFS outputting a tremendous amount of rain across Florida. This is what I'm extremely concerned about as we go out here in time. The GFS is actually outputting 15 plus inches. So this is a serious situation. I'm going to keep you really well tuned to this in Florida because I'm deeply concerned for you. As these systems this time of year, the steering currents sometimes can get really crazy and we can stall these out or just meander the storm for days. Look at even parts of southeastern Louisiana. We do try to get most of this up here is with that trough that comes through. So I don't think we're going to see too many flooding problems up here into the southeast. And look at up here into the northeast in Ohio Valley. We got, a system that'll come through and some upper level lows next week that will produce some, maybe, look at this. We actually have some lake responses up here. These are lake effect bands, so we'll have to keep a watch on some of these. All right, so getting into our HRRR future radar, all eyes, of course, are going to be on the Gulf of Mexico as we head throughout the next several days. One thing we'll be dealing with here, let's flip over to our extended edition here. The Gulf of Mexico moisture is going to continue more towards the north here. So yes, coastal Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, you're probably going to get some tropical moisture here continuing, especially coastal areas and a little bit inland. Unfortunately, there's going to be a few showers up here into parts of the southern Appalachians as we continue through October 4th, Friday into the 5th. But thankfully, you can see that trough. It is moving towards the southeast here, so it's scouring out that moisture as it does so, even for the Carolinas as we head later on into the weekend. And then as we head into 2 p.m. on Saturday here, look at this. The Gulf is just loaded with tremendous amounts of moisture here. And unfortunately, a lot of this has its eyes here on Florida. Now, as we head up into the northeast here, what's going on in eastern New England here? Well, let's just back this thing up here. As we head into the Friday, you're going to eke out a very nice Friday here across much of the east, the mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley. Here we go we head on into later on in the evening. We may, with this trough, it may spark off a few showers and thunder showers here into parts of the northeast. But for the most part, this is going to be dry. Maybe some rainfall here for Long Island and Connecticut as we head into the early morning hours of Saturday, October 5th. And that's what we'll be looking at. That'll be scouring off to the east as we head into 2 p.m. It may not clear eastern Maine, though, by later on Saturday. All right, so let's take a look at picking up where our HRRR future radar left off as we continue into the weekend. You can see high pressure dominating the east. All eyes are here on the Gulf of Mexico. And here is a cold front, sharp cold front moving through the Midwest here as we head throughout the 6th. Look at there, 5 p.m. on the 6th. Unfortunately, your Sunday afternoon and evening may be a wet run around Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, southward there into the Ohio Valley. Eastern Great Lakes. That moves in overnight, Sunday night into Monday. Across parts of the Northeast, we could be looking at showers and a low pressure trying to redevelop here off the coastline. That could bring some beneficial rains to some areas here. And then as we continue in time, a big upper level low kind of kicks into the Northeast. Much of the rest of the East, with the exception for Florida with our potential Gulf system, will be getting some very heavy rain. But one thing's for certain, areas across much of the Southeast that were greatly impacted by Hurricane Helene will continue to dry out with those recovery efforts, and that's great news. We'll get some showers up here into the Northeast, into the 10th, into the 11th. As high pressure continues to build in, that moves away, and you're in for some real nice fall weather across the Midwest into parts of the Northeast, and even down in through parts of the Deep South here. All right, so as we get into Canada here, let's take a look at our forecast. Look at this. This storm comes out of nowhere. It crosses British Columbia, Alberta, right over the Rocky Mountains and blasts into Manitoba. Look at this. This is over the weekend. We could have a 990 millibar low winding up here, and that is what's going to push our cold front blasting eastward. Definitely an air mass change across parts of Canada here with some stronger wind gusts and heavy rains moving eastward there. That kind of turns into an upper level low and just kind of spins out here. So some heavy rains continuing through New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island here as we head into October 9th. High pressure building in behind it here. We're going to try to dry things out, but look at this. Quebec, New Brunswick, Canadian Maritimes, we're just going to spin all this moisture continuing. Look how nice and dry it is up here. Unfortunately, you do need more rain than what you've been seeing. So, yeah, the weather's nice, but that's not good for wildfire situations. Look at this. This is October 11th. Look what's going over here into the Canadian Maritimes. This is an association with a synoptic low that could be combining with some tropical systems here to the south. This is a bit on the crazy side. This forms into a massive 970 millibar low. And then look at what's waiting off the British Columbia coastline as we head into the 13th, into the 14th. We could be looking at our next big system, and there's a system moving across eastern Ontario. So for Canadian rainfall here, it looks pretty dry through the next couple days until you get into next week, and then you really start to see things take off here. Eastern Canada, we're averaging about 40 to 80 millimeters here locally, higher there in the Canadian Maritimes. So we'll be talking about 3/4 to as much as an inch and a half, and then those Canadian Maritimes, those yellowish areas up towards 100 millimeters, that's right around 4 inches. And look at the west coast of Canada here, British Columbia in particular. That is where we'll be seeing upwards of 150 to 200 millimeters of liquid equivalent here, and you know that's going to be some mountain snow as well. So that's going to be on the order of 5, maybe as high as 8 inches. All right, so getting into the Western Pacific here, we're dealing with what's left of there's Tropical Depression Krathon. It's essentially into the mountainous terrain of Taiwan. It's weakening greatly. The rainfall is going to continue, and we'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily. That will head towards Shanghai. The good news is, though, you don't see really many systems behind it here. The Philippines continue with some rainfall. Japan and South Korea up here clearing out nicely, but we could see a resurgence of moisture into South Korea and Japan as we head throughout Sunday here into Monday. So scouring out that moisture to the east, we do have a couple other lows that we could be watching here, so we'll keep close watch on them as we head through October 8th here into the 9th, into the 10th. You start to see a lot more tropical moisture here as we continue through the middle part of the month, but the great news here is it doesn't look like much of anything developing after Krathon here. And here we go for the Western Pacific. Rainfall amounts continuing. Thankfully, Taiwan, you're not going to see too much more rain. Additional 70 to 100 millimeters likely. That's 3 to 4 inches on average. But look at this. Much of the rain's going to get hung up here. Just look at the Korean Peninsula, South Korea. Not too bad, maybe about 16 to 25 millimeters, but look at central and southern Japanese islands here. You could be getting upwards of 100, 150 millimeters. That'll put you up towards 4 to as much as 6 inches. And then the northern Philippines really starting to fill back in with rainfall here. Another 100 to 150 millimeters, getting you up towards 4 to 6 inches. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
Temperature-wise here as we head into Friday, October 4th here, you can see the heat continuing across Texas and the Gulf Coast areas, even 90 in many areas. This does not look like October 4th, by the way. We have 70s well into the northeast as well. Looking just beautiful. Into Saturday, look at this 90-degree heat. This looks like summertime, not fall. As we head into the northeast, we get a shot of some upper 60s here, even into the northern Rockies as well. But look at the heat. This just does not look at it, even out west here. Across much of the south here, we're talking about 80s and 90s, 70s, even upper, look at that, 78 in there in Cleveland on Sunday. And Monday, look at this. This is where you start to see some fall-like temperatures. Lower 60s, even some upper 50s here into northern New England as we head into Monday and into Tuesday. Look at this. There's a big area of upper 50s in interior New York, Pennsylvania, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and lots of 60s. Low to mid 60s here as well. Ohio Valley into the northeast. And Wednesday, look at this. This is the only area that appears fall-like. Look at 60s down into eastern Kentucky and West Virginia as well. The extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton, Scranton, Susquehanna, River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. Friday is looking beautiful. Sunny, low 70s into Saturday. Sunny continuing near 70 degrees. Look at those sleeping weather. Upper 30s Saturday night, Sunday morning. We do have a chance of showers later in the day on Sunday, so watch out for that, but I think it's going to be mostly sunny. It'll be mainly Sunday night the showers move in, but look at that. Monday we'll start clearing it out again into Tuesday with sunny skies, but much more fall-like into the upper 50s. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.